The day after his wife's funeral, Mason and his mistress, Vanessa, walked into the lawyer's office, expecting to claim her inheritance. But a surprise was waiting for them, one that had been set in motion years before. Mason had married Olivia 3 years ago. Truthfully, he never would have considered it if she hadn't become the sole owner of her late father's booming tech company. After her father's sudden passing, a man known for his vibrant energy, claimed without warning by a heart attack, Olivia, as his only child, became the sole heir to everything. That was precisely why Mason, attractive but profoundly lazy and accustomed to living off the generosity of wealthy women, had set his sights on her. Olivia, in her grief, fell for Mason's sweet promises, while he secretly planned to stay only until a better opportunity came along. He soon realized, however, that Olivia herself was the jackpot. She had inherited a vast fortune, and Mason knew precisely how to exploit it. He believed it would be easy to use her deep love for him to control her wealth. For a while, everything worked out perfectly. Devastated by her father's death, the man who had always been her rock, Olivia found comfort in Mason's constant presence and feigned support. The young, innocent woman had no idea that the darkest time of her life was the perfect cover for Mason to hide his true colors, at least until they were legally bound. He kept up the act flawlessly, ensuring there was no turning back. After a respectable mourning period for her father, he proposed. Mason was an expert liar, a manipulator, a chameleon. He could become whoever he needed to be to please his rich girlfriends. Usually, he didn't bother with too much effort, figuring there was always another wealthy woman around the corner. But with Olivia, he knew this effort would pay off. His patience would be rewarded, and the cunning man understood that well. However, an unexpected obstacle emerged from someone Mason never saw coming: Olivia's godfather, Mr. Harrison, who was also her father's best friend and most trusted advisor at the company. He quickly realized Olivia was deeply in love and that nothing would stop her from marrying Mason. Her grief made her crave a replacement father figure. Still, Mr. Harrison, shrewd and fiercely protective, pushed hard for a prenuptial agreement and eventually convinced Olivia to agree. "Mason, it's just for business," Olivia repeated, echoing what Mr. Harrison had told her. "Is this really necessary?" she asked, her voice soft but unsure. "This is humiliating. You think I need your money?" Mason snapped back, pretending to be deeply offended. He then forced a gentle smile. "Sweetheart, it's just a formality. We'd only need it if we ever split up. Your godfather just wants to protect you. He's always been like a second father to you." While inexperienced with the complexities of finance, she never had to worry about it. Olivia was not a fool. Once her mind was made up, she possessed a quiet determination that often surprised people. Mason had no choice but to accept every single condition Mr. Harrison laid out. The marriage agreement looked simple at first glance, but it left Mason with almost no legal rights at all. It was crystal clear that the company and every asset Olivia inherited would never become shared property. Mason assumed he'd at least get a slice of the profits to fund his lifestyle, but the contract, drawn up by a top-tier attorney, made even that impossible. Still, he convinced himself the marriage would be worth it. He planned to tap into Olivia's accounts behind her back, skimming small amounts from their household budget to build a hidden stash. But Mason misjudged that, too. Mr. Harrison, a trustworthy and upright man, oversaw not just the company's finances, but also Olivia's personal spending. Mason's access to cash was limited to minor personal expenses, but he kept telling himself the situation would turn around soon enough. He didn't have to wait long to feel like luck was finally on his side. From the first day of their marriage, Olivia desperately wanted to become a mother. But month after month, her hopes were dashed. At first, she blamed the stress of juggling work and managing her father's company. It drained her completely. After a year of heartbreak, she turned to medical specialists. At night, Olivia would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, silently praying for a miracle she no longer had the strength to believe in. Each failed attempt broke a piece of her resolve. Yet every morning, she forced herself to smile for the world, and especially for the man she thought would stand by her side. In those quiet moments alone, tears often soaked her pillow while Mason slept soundly beside her, oblivious and uncaring. Once, at her lowest point, Olivia nearly called the clinic to stop everything. She had typed out a message saying she didn't want any more tests, any more needles, any more false hope. But her thumb hovered over the send button for what felt like an eternity before she deleted it. She could never bring herself to give up completely. She went through every test, hoping for an answer. What she thought was just exhaustion turned out to be far worse. Her body had been giving her warnings she chose to ignore. In the end, the doctors told her the unthinkable. It was cancer. When the doctor uttered the word, Olivia's mind went blank. Her throat tightened until she could barely breathe. She nodded numbly, clutching the edge of her chair so she wouldn't collapse under the weight of a future she never imagined, a future without children, without time, and without the husband she once thought was her safe place. Olivia endured almost 2 years of painful, ineffective treatments. Through it all, Mason played the part of a devoted husband, but only on the surface. Deep down, he wished Olivia would just vanish, and he couldn't even hide that truth well enough. Though they never said it out loud, Olivia knew exactly how many other women her husband slept with behind her back. Mason thought he was clever, fooling everyone while waiting for his dying wife to hand him his ticket to an easy life. He believed he was the perfect fraud, but everyone else saw right through him, from the nurses at the hospital to Mr. Harrison himself. Mr. Harrison was furious and helpless, unable to understand why Olivia was so determined to keep her marriage intact, even as she lay on her deathbed. What troubled him even more was that Olivia had never written a will. This meant her husband, that scoundrel Mason, would automatically inherit everything. Her father's legacy, his life's work, would be squandered within a few short years. Mr. Harrison knew exactly the kind of man Mason was, reckless, greedy, and wasteful. It broke the old man's heart every time he sat by Olivia's bed, watching her fragile hand struggle to pour tea for him. He fought the urge to beg her one last time, "Please, don't leave everything to that snake." But each time he opened his mouth, her tired eyes met his with a calm so fierce that he swallowed his words. The old man was torn. Just months ago, she had seemed so full of life, and now there was no hope left. She was dying, a matter of weeks. Meanwhile, Mason was already rubbing his hands together, his eyes glinting at the thought of finally being free and swimming in wealth. Mr. Harrison prayed he wouldn't have to bring up the will himself, and thankfully, he didn't have to. Olivia began the conversation on her own, unveiling a secret plan that left him stunned. She had arranged every detail with quiet precision and an icy resolve. Revenge, truly, was a dish best served cold, and Olivia was about to deliver it flawlessly. Her plan didn't take much time or effort to pull off, but by the time she closed her eyes for the last time, she had protected what mattered most. Sadly, those who loved her didn't get a miracle. Olivia passed away without ever recovering. She had arranged every part of her funeral herself, ensuring her final wishes were clear. The day after the ceremony, the lawyer called in everyone named in her will. Mason was blindsided. He had been so sure Olivia hadn't left behind any official paperwork, which meant by default, he would get everything. Still clinging to that hope, he walked into the lawyer's office hand in hand with his new lover, Vanessa. As they stepped inside, Mason immediately noticed Mr. Harrison and Olivia's close friend, Connor Hayes. But what made him freeze was that Connor wasn't alone. He was gently pushing a baby stroller with a toddler inside. Mason had no idea Connor had even gotten married, let alone had a child. And while Mason was no genius, he certainly wasn't stupid. It didn't take him long to realize that something was up, and he had walked straight into a trap. Despite the growing dread twisting in his gut, he stayed. He needed to know what Olivia had done. For a torturous 15 minutes, the room was thick with an awkward silence. Finally, the lawyer cleared his throat, stretching out the introduction as long as possible before looking at Mason with an almost smug smile. At last, Mason heard his name. To my lawful husband, Mason, the lawyer read, his voice calm but sharp, I deny the inheritance. He looked directly at Mason. Do you understand what that means? The humiliated man had no choice but to nod. Vanessa gripped his hand, ready to storm out, but Mason yanked his hand away. He wanted nothing more than to escape, but the scene wasn't over. After a short pause, the lawyer continued. I leave all my personal property to my only son, Tommy Hayes, until he reaches adulthood. I appoint his father, Connor Hayes, and my godfather, Mr. Harrison, as guardians and administrators of his estate. The shock hit Mason like a physical blow. A son? Connor's son, he snapped, his composure shattering. No one else in the room looked surprised. The boy is Olivia's biological child, Mr. Dellett, Mr. Harrison confirmed calmly. Mason gasped, his voice cracking. But she hasn't been pregnant in 2 years. That's true, Mr. Harrison said, relishing Mason's horror. Thanks to modern medicine, she preserved her eggs before her treatments began. She wanted to be a mother no matter what. Connor remembered the day Olivia had told him she was terminally ill. He'd been devastated, but she'd spoken with quiet strength. I stored my eggs before I started chemo, she'd said. The doctor said I probably couldn't carry my own child, but I wouldn't let that stop me. She took a deep breath. Connor, I grew up without a mom. It was hard, but you were always there for me, always protected me. I know this is a lot to ask. Does Mason know you want to do this? Connor had asked. Olivia laughed bitterly. Who would trust him to raise a baby alone? He'd just spend the baby's money without a second thought. No, I've realized exactly what kind of person my dear husband is. She paused, then pushed through her nerves. What I really want to ask is, would you be the father of my child? Are you serious? Connor was stunned. Olivia, you have a husband. Yes, a husband I'll have until the day I die, she said calmly. I've already decided this. Of course, we won't sleep together. I can't carry the baby myself, but with my preserved eggs and your contribution, all we need is a surrogate. Thankfully, these services exist. At first, Connor thought it was the desperate fantasy of a dying woman. But Olivia had planned everything logically. She'd researched the legal side, arranged things with a fertility clinic, and even lined up a surrogate. I could use a donor, Olivia admitted. But I don't want just any man. I want to leave behind a part of myself and know who will raise my child. You're the only person I can trust. You don't need my money, you've built your own success. After what Mason did to me, I want the father of my child to be someone who would never use my wealth for himself. I know you'll be an amazing father. Connor wrestled with the idea. The weight of it was immense. He spoke with his parents, who, after their initial shock, promised their full support. When he finally told Olivia he agreed, she was overwhelmed with joy. Back in the lawyer's office, Mason wasn't finished. Are you telling me I don't get anything? Not even the minimum share. I'm her husband, damn it, he shouted. The lawyer remained calm. According to the will, you are not entitled to any compulsory portion of her estate. I have also reviewed your marriage contract. You have no grounds, though you are free to try in court. I'll fight this. Mason ranted, his face red with fury. It's not clear who this illegitimate kid even is. The lawyer coolly replied, attached here are the child's birth certificate, full medical records of his birth, and, at the deceased's request, DNA results confirming your late wife is Tommy Hayes' biological mother. All documents have been thoroughly verified. Let me see them. Mason barked. No, the lawyer said firmly. You can only review the portions relevant to you. All other documents regarding the child can only be disclosed with parental consent. I don't permit it, Connor cut in sharply. That was too much for Mason. He spun on his heel and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. Vanessa quietly excused herself and slipped out behind him. Once they were gone, Mr. Harrison helped Connor with little Tommy. "Want to come with us?" Connor asked. "I'm going to walk a bit. The fresh air is good for him." "Of course," Mr. Harrison agreed. As they strolled down the street, Connor finally voiced the worry that had been gnawing at him. "Do you think Olivia would be happy with how I'm managing all this?" "I know she would be," Mr. Harrison said without hesitation. "You're a wonderful father, and she trusted you with everything." "There's one thing I can't shake," Connor confessed. "I didn't like making a show of it for Mason. It felt ugly. Maybe we should have cut him off long ago. But Olivia wanted her revenge. I think. She wanted it because she loved him once, so deeply, and that twisted love had nowhere else to go but into a plan to make him pay." His voice caught. Buried beneath his anger was a guilt that maybe he hadn't protected her enough when she was alive. Mr. Harrison wiped a tear from his cheek. "My poor girl. Don't worry about her now," Connor said gently. "She asked us not to. She wanted all our love to go to Tommy. That's her real legacy." While the two men spoke, Mason was parked down the street. "So, you really get nothing?" Vanessa asked, her eyes wide. "You're an idiot if you think there's any chance left," Mason snapped. "Now come on. We need to grab whatever's valuable from the house." 3 days later, Connor went to Olivia's house, bracing for a confrontation. But it was empty. Mason had already been there, helping himself to anything he could carry. Now, Mason sat alone in his dingy apartment, nursing cheap whiskey. Vanessa, of course, had disappeared. Why would she stick around for a broke man? He mumbled curses into his glass, telling himself Olivia had ruined him. Not once did he whisper the truth, that he had done it all to himself. Mason spent nearly 2 weeks drowning in self-pity. But one miserable morning, he decided he'd had enough. He wouldn't get revenge by sitting drunk in a filthy apartment. A vicious thrill jolted through him as a plan formed: kidnap Tommy, take him far away, and abandon him in an orphanage where no one could find him. It was a thought that would have shattered Olivia. He spent the next week savoring the idea, feeling more alive than he had in ages. He began his preparations, hiding in the woods near Connor's parents' home, peering through binoculars, studying Tommy's daily routine. He bought a taser, an old car, and stole license plates. He was going to make them pay. On the chosen Wednesday, he watched the nanny push Tommy's stroller along a quiet forest path. He lunged, shoved her away, and fired the taser. As he bent over the stroller to unbuckle Tommy, something smashed into the side of his head. He crumpled to the ground, dazed, as an older man bound his wrists with rope. The man was Mr. Turner, a veteran forest ranger whose cabin was hidden near a detail Mason had completely overlooked. "I saw this guy loitering near the path," Mr. Turner later told the police. "Looked suspicious. I stayed hidden and watched. When he attacked the woman and went for the baby, I knew I had to stop him." A few hours later, Connor showed up at Mr. Turner's door. "Hello, I'm Tommy's father," he said, his voice breaking. "How can I ever repay you?" Mr. Turner just chuckled. "No need for that. But if you insist, a new hunting jacket and some good food for my old dog wouldn't hurt." Encouraged, Connor told him the whole story: Olivia's illness, her plan, Mason's spite. "Sometimes I wonder if we pushed him to this," Connor admitted. "Oh, for heaven's sake," Mr. Turner scoffed. "That Mason of yours would have always found an excuse. He married for money, cheated, and mistreated his sick wife. She hit him where it hurt his wallet. Good for her. She owed him nothing." The blunt truth from a plain-spoken stranger soothed Connor's guilt. Years passed. The court sentenced Mason to a long prison term, and the sharp edges of grief at Connor's house softened into fond memories. Mr. Harrison remained a constant, beloved presence, and Mr. Turner became like another grandparent to Tommy, always watching over him from his cabin in the woods. One sunny afternoon at a kindergarten picnic, Connor met a single mother whose little girl was in Tommy's class. The kids became instant best friends, and soon, so did their parents. Love, quiet and unexpected, began to blossom. Connor's parents watched with happy tears in their eyes, seeing the promise of a future where Tommy would have a stepmother and a sister, and their home would once again be filled with the complete joy of a family. No matter how life moved forward, Connor never let Tommy forget his real mother. He told him stories of Olivia's courage, showed him pictures of her bright smile, and reminded him over and over that she loved him more than anything in the world. He taught him that even if he couldn't see her, she was always there, protecting him. One evening, as Connor tucked a sleepy Tommy into bed, his new partner and her daughter sat reading in the living room, their soft laughter echoing through the house. Connor looked at his son, now a bright, happy boy surrounded by so much love, and he smiled. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his soul, that Olivia would be happy. Her true legacy wasn't the company or the fortune, it was this. This love, this laughter, this beautiful, unconventional family. So, my dear friends, that's how Olivia's story comes to an end. And yet, for some of you who have stayed until this very moment, perhaps it's not just a story. Life has a stubborn habit of handing us people like Mason, people who take more than they give and drain the light from our days. But as the Stoics remind us, and as Marcus Aurelius once wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Olivia lost almost everything she thought made life worth living. Yet, she found power in her mind and heart. She turned her greatest heartbreak into a shield for her son's future and proved that even when life betrays us, we don't have to betray ourselves. This story is about betrayal, yes, but even more, it's about the choice to love deeply, fight fiercely, and protect what truly matters, even if it means leaving behind a plan that blooms only after we're gone. If you're fighting your own battles today, if you feel alone, I want you to remember Olivia's quiet strength. You can choose how to respond. You can choose your legacy. And sometimes, you can be your own hero in ways no one ever sees. If this story moved you, please give it a like, share it with someone who needs a little hope, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss our next story. We're here for each other, always. See you soon, my wonderful friends.